And in trying to understand like can an AI be conscious, I think maybe when we talked like weeks or even months ago, we off the air we talked about can we like or maybe I'm hallucinating this, but I was hearing as well people using integrated information theory, the theory of consciousness. Like, can you apply that to AIs and like think about, just through information processing and I don't know. I guess with LLMs, then would that maybe not be as integrated? I'm not sure, and and I don't go on.
I think like Julio and like the other IET theorists would say like they would say no for at least the reason that the architecture is still involve a von Neumann bottleneck, and that if that basically that the nature of that serialization prevents the kind of recurrence of effective connectivity you would need to have a system that is meaningfully self-entangled, that has like this kind of as I might say irreducible self-cause effect power on itself, where it's sensitive to both big and small things and has this uh, high capacity to make a difference to its own future evolution, um, and 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 uh, and where small differences within it make a big difference of the difference between what was past and what's to come. And so they would argue that basically unless you have like a certain type of recurrence or feedback on the level of physics, that you that's impossible. And so the language models would be an example of like this dissociation of a highly intelligent system that's very clearly a zombie system. I tend to think they're probably right about language models like being zombies, but I don't. I do wonder whether there's some big questions about the nature of the physical and why causal sequences have to happen at the level of physics when we're still always coarse graining at the level of physics. Like, what do we mean by physics? Like, I feel like we're overly reifying causation there and conflating it with something like a conservation law. Because really, as I understand it, it's a bookkeeping and explanation scheme that we use. And we have a bunch of them that are differently useful in different contexts. So it's like you might do Pearlian causation with these graphs. You might do like Eric Cole's method of like maximizing channel capacity for coarse graining the system. There's all sorts of ways we use causation as a concept. So that to say, no, only the causation at the level of physics is real. Which physics? I'm not so sure. Maybe by the time you consider basically what you're trying to explain, like when you consider some systems, the ways in which they achieve information closure, the maximal explanation might include things like virtual machines. Like economies are quite real, but yeah. So a dyed-in-the-wool IIT theorist would say no. I think IIT is amazing as like for informing conversations about consciousness, as long as it's not the only voice. They don't like that, but I think that they might. I would part ways on saying that just because of tentatively that just because a von Neumann bottleneck is involved, you're necessarily dealing with an unconscious system. I'm agnostic on that issue.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that you bring up something like an economy because I've been kind of thinking a lot about collective intelligences and systems beyond beyond well collections of humans. There was a great um conversation that Roy Baumeister and Michael Levin had on their his own sort of academic channel, and maybe he was at the end of that, and it's not too public their channels. He was, Michael Levin was kind of, I don't care what I'm gonna. He was gonna say it anyway. He was thinking about, maybe there is a kind of experience that a nation might have because, for him, a logic, you talked about him studying like simple, code blocks and he's even thinking, can you test the weather? I mean, we just haven't done it. It's kind of an empirical question. To what degree does it have competencies? Could it like learn? I mean, one argument I hear for why it's not reasonable to think of like high agencies as having an experience is that it's just like the speed of connections in something like a brain it's just too great to be replicated. But it's an interesting question. I've even talked to like one scientist, people in like developmental sort of theory thinking about multifractal dynamics of like how different limbs and different parts of our body are kind of coordinated, and you can kind of even measure that the way they're coordinated. And so it's that could even be an empirical question. Like you can actually just measure like to what degree are different parts of bigger systems coordinated, and I wonder what that would tell us about the intelligence of them. Have you thought of
the speed of the signaling of the system and like the pressures you're putting on it for like the synchronization manifolds within it, like what coordination tasks must it do, like just giving something a body and then requiring, just for the sake of coherent kinematics, that the system like achieve a kind of agreement or closure with respect to this engagement with the physical world, like that could put pressure, but also like the kind of architecture, like something like small worldness. So like it's possible, like, you know, if you look at like the causal flows through an economy, or I imagine it has a small world structure, and probably without it, it wouldn't have enough cohesion that we would even like call it a thing and have a word for it potentially, like in terms. But that's not necessarily enough in terms of like the economy as a whole might not have like the body politic might not be enough for like it to have a tight enough coordination that it's entailing data structures, which there's a dual description for an information geometry, which would say, yeah, that's like an experience. It might be like some combination of architectural features and the nature of the coordination that's required.
Interesting.